The Harlem Globetrotters is one of the oldest basketball teams in the world. And they're not just early, they also became the pioneer of the sport. You can even know if one is not a real hooper if you say Harlem and not think of the Globetrotters. Visually known for their blue, red, and white uniforms, they travel the world to bring a unique kind of ball to fans. This is the story of the Harlem Globetrotters. Let's go back to the 1920s in the streets of Chicago's South Side. In a time when racial segregation was a big thing, a guy named Abe Saperstein had this great idea. He thought, hey, let's show everyone how awesome African-American basketball players are. So in 1926, he started forming what we now know as the Harlem Globetrotters. The Globetrotters' story and their name tell us about the real struggles with race stuff back then. In the 1920s, most organized basketball was all about college teams, and they weren't cool with mixing up races. So with some black players wanting to play more games than being just a substitute, they put together the Savoy Big Five in Chicago's Savoy Ballroom. They had ways to gather people to watch them. One includes the tactic of playing games before dance performances, a smart move to get more people watching. But then, in 1928, a huge argument inside the team occurred and left the team with fewer players than they had before. They then formed a new squad called the Globetrotters and started touring Southern Illinois as a result of the heated event. And it turned out better for them. Abe Saperstein, a local business guy who loved basketball, thought about the group and thought, I want to be part of this. He became their most important person as he was the one to found the team, and in 1929, now as a manager and promoter, they decided to hit the road. As they moved beyond the Savoy Ballroom in Chicago, they needed a new name. Even though they were from Illinois, Saperstein and the crew decided to call themselves the New York Harlem Globetrotters to match the surging popularity. After a bunch of local wins, the Globetrotters jazzed up their game with funny moves and stuff, especially thanks to players like Inman Jackson. But the 1940s, that's when they went big. In 1939, this tournament called the World Professional Basketball Tournament in Chicago kicked off. The Globetrotters rocked it, and in 1940 they aced an all-white championship game, showing everyone they were the team to beat. They finished their undefeated run and capped it off by defeating the Chicago Bruin in the finals game, 31-29. Back in 1939, the Harlem Globetrotters hit a big moment when they went head-to-head with the world champion Minneapolis Lakers. It wasn't just a win, it was a game-changer, breaking down racial barriers in basketball. Led by players like Goose Tatum and Marquess Haynes, the Globetrotters weren't just athletes, they were the trailblazers bringing integration to the pro basketball scene. The showdown went down on February 19, 1948, cooked up by Globetrotters boss Abe Saperstein and Lakers bigwig Max Winter. Both were dead, sure their teams were the best, setting the stage for a legendary showdown. With almost 18,000 fans packing Chicago Stadium, the Globetrotters had their work cut out. Just to give you an idea, no basketball game had ever pulled in more than 9,000 fans before. At halftime, they were trailing the Lakers 32-23. In the final moments, tied up, Irma Robinson nailed a jaw-dropping shot from way downtown, sealing the deal and setting off a wild celebration. The next year, Lakers and Globetrotters squared off again, with the Globetrotters grabbing another win at 49-45. More than just wins, these games sent a loud message to the basketball world. They shouted that black players weren't just as good as their white counterparts, but brought a whole new level of excitement that got everyone pumped. Despite their winning streak, the Globetrotters hit some bumps when the NBA started rising in the 1950s. The NBA started picking up black players, like Chuck Cooper, drafted by Boston in 1950, and Sweetwater Clifton signing with the Knicks. The Globetrotters, once the big shots, had to figure out how to roll with the changes as the NBA took over the hoops scene. In the 1950s, the Harlem Globetrotters took their talents on a global tour, becoming friendly ambassadors but with basketballs. Their games turned into something more than just playing ball as they became cultural starts that spread happiness and togetherness everywhere they went. By the 1960s, the Globetrotters had appeared on shows in over 80 countries. One cool story from back then happened in 1951 during a game in Berlin. This was during the time when the Cold War was like a big deal. The Globetrotters shared the court with their rivals, the Washington Generals, not just to play, but to show that sports could be friends even when politics wasn't. They used basketball to offer peace in other territories, a somehow unorthodox move, but they've been a pioneer of reform since their start. In 1951, they set a crazy record by playing in front of 75,000 fans at Berlin's Olympic Stadium. And because they were so good at their acts, the U.S. State Department formally coined them ambassadors of goodwill. Presidents Eisenhower and Ford even gave them a thumbs up for bringing people together. Then, in 1959, they took their goodwill tour to Moscow, Russia, after getting an invite from Vasily Grigorievich, who ran Lenin Central Stadium. This time, basketball superstar Wilt Chamberlain signed with them, and his towering presence was a delight to fans, even for Premier Nikita Khrushchev. They received the Athletic Order of Lenin Medal, even though some people in the papers were like, "This isn't basketball, it's too tricky." But deep down, everyone knew at that time that the Globetrotters had something special. Metro Media then decided to buy the Globetrotters for $1 million. But guess what? That didn't happen. Instead, George N. Gillett Jr. took over in 1968 and made a brand new company called Globetrotter Communications. And with that move, they were now playing in a much bigger audience. Beyond the basketball court, the Harlem Globetrotters became more than just a sports team as they turned into cultural sensations. They made up their mark in pop culture. As the 70s and 80s rolled around, the Globetrotters retained their massive popularity. They even got bigger. They appeared in animation with a CBS show that gained some of the highest ratings in Saturday morning television history. They also took their charisma to live action with the Harlem Globetrotters Popcorn Machine, a Saturday morning variety show. The team, known for their flashy skills on the court, was watched as well through frequent appearances on ABC's Wide World of Sports. Acknowledging their contribution as entertainers, the Harlem Globetrotters were honored with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame in 1982. Moreover, in a big move in 1985, Olympic gold medalist Lynette Woodard joined the Globetrotters, smashing barriers as the first woman to play on a men's professional basketball team. Her addition marked a historic moment, especially in basketball. It changed traditional norms in sports and contributed to the bigger conversation about gender inclusivity in athletics. Their place shifted in 1986, witnessing a significant change in ownership and corporate structure. As part of the spin-off of Metro Media's television stations to News Corporation and the 20th Century Fox Film Studio, the Harlem Globetrotters, along with the Ice Capades, were sold to the Minneapolis-based International Broadcasting Corporation for $30 million. Years later, former Globetrotters player Manny Jackson took the helm and became the first African-American to own a major international sports and entertainment organization. Under Jackson's leadership, the team experienced exponential growth, with revenue tripling in 3 years and the organization quadrupling in size over 5 years. Beyond their on-court greatness, the Globetrotters, still under Jackson's guidance, delved into philanthropy, contributing over $11 million to charitable causes. The Harlem Globetrotters over the years have become more than just basketball players. They brought laughter, joy, and happiness to their acts, unlike competitive basketball teams that strive for championships. Their story was filled with a rich history that's been continuing for almost 100 years, making people smile on basketball courts and winning hearts all around the world. They even got into the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Back in 2013, the Globetrotters got a new boss in the Hershend family entertainment. Fast forward to 2021, and the Globetrotters decided they wanted to play competitive basketball and play in the NBA. They were like, hey, we've got the skills, we've got the legacy, let us join the NBA club. So they wrote a petition to NBA Big Shots, asking to be inserted as an expansion franchise. Even though the NBA is thinking about going back to cities like Seattle and Vancouver, adding the Globetrotters would be a bit out of the ordinary, as they also currently operate around the world. Nowadays, the Globetrotters remain as the rock stars of basketball entertainment. They're doing more than 400 shows a year in over 25 countries. Every time they play, they have these amazing athletes doing mind-blowing tricks like the famous Harlem Globetrotters. 4-point shot, thunderous dunks, and crazy passes. Their audience scaled from presidents to popes to the fans. It's like they've become this global phenomenon, taking basketball to a whole new level.